Hi guys, Moody here. I want to make an update to my DoTsplosion guide. You might have seen that video, and it's like one of the more successful builds out there. And now that I've basically progressed through the game and I have like really good items, I want to show like basically the path to take for the late game. Because like I changed quite a few things on this build, but it's not really recommended to do that right away because you need to have certain items, certain level requirement and so on. And you can still follow the old guide and then slowly transition into this one. I just want to show like where the end of the line is basically. So this video will assume that you know the guide, or at least know the build and the basics, and I'm not going to go into every detail again. I'm rather just going to show you the changes that I've done. And right now I can use this build to farm tier 187s in around 3 to 5 minutes. My record is like 3.5 minutes, and I think I can definitely do some runs below 3. I haven't tried that many after I optimized everything. Like my slowest run was like, I don't know, 6 minutes. So it's very efficient, and especially after building Edge Nerve, that's going to be like one of the top builds, I assume. So here's the tree. I changed a few things. Most importantly, I removed some of the defense from Branded Burst, most importantly. So I was originally talking how good of a survival passive this is, and that is still true. But the thing is that by now I've become so tanky that I'm actually face tanking a lot. And like this, the 10 hit points actually disappear very fast, and I just completely spec'd out of it for that reason, because I'm tanky enough to survive basically any one-shot ability in the game right now on 187. I think I've died like, I don't know, like once or twice in like 10 hours of playing my other setup here. So it's very good, and I don't really need this anymore. So this frees up a few slots, and instead I pathed over to the salvatory anchor here. Salvatory anchor is very strong when you have a heavy chest piece and also a heavy helm because of the small node behind it. And what it does is it doubles the auras on those items. And this is basically also the point where I transitioned to this setup, because I managed to craft a very big helm. This has almost 700 auras, and then doubled is like 1400. And we have a very big chest as well with 1.1k. This one is really nice. Like my helm is actually best in slot for this build, I would say, with those exact rolls. And my chest could still be a bit better. It has like occult resistance, attack speed, which is not really great. But it has big res and the cooldown, which is the most important part. And also like a nice stat of toughness. And I also socketed more auras gems and so on. And this put me at 20k res, which is a lot of damage reduction, and makes me very tanky. And this is very good because you can play safely through the maps. You don't really have to worry too much about dying. You can make very big pulls without much trouble, and you can more easily kill the boss. You can more easily kill the untainteds, simply because you can stand still a lot more and just tank stuff, and you can group monsters much more easily. Other than that, on a tree, I spec like full into crit stuff now. So we have the crit damage, we have the crit chance. Most importantly, because Mark of Impurity explosions work with crit, so they can crit and they deal crit damage. And this is very important, of course, when you want to kill bosses. And also there's like kind of like in preparation for the Primordial Insights fix. I have heard that apparently this node works when you spec it as the last point on a tree. I've actually tried this. I couldn't find any difference, and we just had to wait for the fix, I assume, for the most part. And yeah, I just put it 1 point in now anyway, because the patch is going to come in a few days, and then this is going to be fine, probably. Other than that, I also like pathed a little bit out from the red area here. I moved like this pathing stuff, but most of the tree is like unchanged. So we still have the Time Weaver here. We still have the aim and stuff in the Capitalist cluster. And yeah, I removed like a little bit of the block stuff. I had like a little bit more block originally. I just want to have like a little bit of block, which I get from the helm and the chest, just to apply the weakness stacks a bit. And this is about it. Also, another change is the Frenzy Blows. So I actually spec'd into this again. I also took the 1 point for plus 150 max rage. So like this, you can do bigger bursts, and this is quite important because on 187 the dots are not enough to just pop the Mark of Impurity explosions. you want to burst them a bit with the turrets and with the rating arrows, and this helps quite a bit. And with all the risk cost reduction I have, I can use my skills, infinitely anyway. And with like this little bit of extra rage, I managed to stay above the 750 threshold quite easily. Also, one important piece that I added is the beacon for the lost. We found out that this is actually a multiplier. So the way this works is that your attack damage is increased by 25% as like extra sacred damage when your fall shield is below 50%. And for me to proc this, I use 1 gem in my pants. So I just put in like a 500 fall shield gem. You can actually use the lower value as well. So every time you get damaged a little bit, you will have this effect. And this is a very nice burst assistance basically, because as you make the pull, you take a little bit of damage, the fall shield drops, and you get the bonus. So this is very, very nice. So I popped up here for this, and this is quite helpful. Other than that, now that I'm level 81, I'm not really gonna acquire much more points. Probably like 1 or 2 maximum, because the level requirement, like the XP per level is increasing very sharply, and this is pretty much it. There's like maybe 1 or 2 like minor things you could take, something like more block chance or something. Maybe you could like take one of these here, but this is about it. If you're a little bit lower level, before level 80, it's gonna be quite hard to do this setup. I would probably remove this part with the beacon for lost, because it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points. You do get 25% multiplicative, which is not bad, but this is probably like the easiest to remove when you're like a bit lower level. And like minus 6 points is level 75, which is very achievable, and you can basically do the entire the same tree entirely, and that should be quite fine then. The rest of my items look like this. So I already showed you the helm and the chest. Basically, if you want to have cooldown reduction everywhere, which is helm, chest, and pants. You want transfer time reduction as much as possible, so at least 2 or 3 items. But if not, then you can make up for that with the support sockets. There's a gem that gives transfer time reduction. You want resource cost reduction on all 4 pieces, which is the gloves and the shoulders. And generally, other than that, you stack lots of crit damage, lots of crit chance, ferocity, toughness. Attack speed is unimportant, so they will replace this. If you can, you should maybe get a little bit of dodge, but that's quite hard to roll all the right stats. So I'm still working on some of those pieces, and then I have really low dodge chance. I have like I think 1 or 2 pieces here that give me a bit, and preferably I'd have a little bit more of that. Material damage I actually kind of disregarded for the most part, so I just tried to get it like as a little bonus, but it's not really that great anymore, I think, because after a certain level you have like so much additive damage from your main stats that it doesn't really matter all that much. They have like a little bit more material damage and so on. Yeah, my rings, they look something like this. So you want like all res. I have all res on both rings, which is very, very strong. And like some other res here, some crit damage, some life. So these are the stats you're looking for. Perhaps material damage, perhaps ailment stacks inflicted. Something like this amulet here is very strong. You don't really want to flat damage rolls on the rings, because there's only like fire, frost, and lightning. And you have amulet and belt for the rend and toxic and so on. So on the amulet this is fine. On the ring I don't really like the flat rolls too much, because there's a lot of other stats. And here's my bow. This one is an Ether Jump bow, which is very nice. Ether Jump is not to be underestimated, and I would really recommend once your character is strong enough to go for Ether Jump. Alternatively, you can use evasion, but Ether Jump just makes it very, very smooth, very fast. And it's very nice to use. So this is great to make pulls, to rush to the boss, to just go through the levels faster, and it really speeds up a clear time. So obviously you don't have to use a bow. You can just as well use a pistol with a catalyst, and then you can use like even other skills like anomaly for grouping. So this is actually like probably a stronger setup, especially if you have the mech faster and interact, which is an offhand that doesn't have the transfer time penalty. Or you try to get like a pistol that has air jump, for example, or a shield. Like with a shield, you're going to be very tanky. Pistol and shield, for example, if you can manage to get air jump somewhere. So this is really recommended. And other than that, I still have like my dot scaling a bit. So I have like the bleed and the poison. So you try to make sure that rend and toxic are the highest 2 damage types. Make really sure that they overcome the physical damage, because on the raygun you want to avoid that you apply shock. Shock is a very strong element. It would actually buff the build, but it also crashes the game very easily on the high tiers. So try to make sure that your raygun doesn't apply shock. And for example, I made it so that I have bleed because I have very high rend damage. This is quite important. Okay, and for the runes, I also changed that a little bit. Most importantly, the radiant arrows. It looks like this. I have the instant damage rune with the more damage per enemy in the area, and I also have the charge. I don't really use the charge very often, but there's not really much else to increase the burst. So sometimes I use it, but most of the time I ignore it. It's just like a little bonus sometimes when I feel like I need the extra damage. My outer turret looks like this. I have the AoE effect now. This is just there to do a little bit of AoE damage and dot everything up, and the rest is like more damage, 2 turrets and so on. Raygun looks like this. I basically have like a full support setup with like rage generation. This didn't really change much. Dust Shroud is really nice because you can pop it to increase your shadow damage. And this gives you, I think, something like 15 to 20% extra damage as shadow. So this is quite nice when you're bursting. And other than that, I have the curse, and the stamina regeneration is really nice, especially when you don't have edge jump. I would definitely recommend this. Then move your enemies, the speed. I actually removed the skill duration because I found that most of the time I use it for a very short amount of time. So I pop Dust Shroud maybe to clear ailments, or maybe to get the buff for shadow damage, or maybe to go like a few steps to the right position, and then I'm out again. And in fact, I actually want to drop the Dust Shroud fast, so that monsters keep walking towards me basically for the pulling. And we have the Mark of Impurity, which looks like this right now. We found out that the weight of culpability rune actually doesn't work, but I think the base damage multiplier of this skill is 20%, and this rune is plus 10%, and here another 10%. The curse doesn't really seem strong enough for 3 points, and also seems bugged, so try to avoid this. And obviously we still have the spread and the explosion here, and we have the crit damage, which there's like nothing really else to take. So instead of this, you can also take the duration, especially when you don't have the trial build, because I actually have the trial. I found this on a 187 run for the chest, and this is very, very nice. But obviously you can still play the build without that. You just have to snipe the targets with Mark of Impurity yourself. So for that, I would probably recommend the longer duration, because it helps you to make the pulls and then pop it before it times out. I have the Phantom Blades here. This is just some kind of like a little bit of additional DPS to help me like apply dots and do a little bit of damage. I don't use it very much, so it's kind of whatever. So you replace the Phantom Blades with Mark of Impurity without the belt. And my stats, they look like this right now. So I mentioned earlier I spec full into crit. I have almost full ferocity. I have like 800 something. I think it's like 60-40 ferocity toughness right now. You can still spec a little bit more into toughness. I have very high crit chance right now. So something like 50% is very comfortable. And you can just dump all the rest into toughness. I don't go for wisdom at all anymore, because if you stack a little bit of material damage, material status chance, like on the bow for example, I have almost 30% chance to bleed and poison and so on. This is more than enough with the turrets and the Phantom Blades and so on. I apply stacks quite easily, and I don't really need much more. So I completely remove wisdom. I have like a lot of ferocity and some toughness. And this is how I roll right now. So you can even go for more toughness. Even something like 40% crit chance is all right. When you're not really in that like late game where you have like tons of crit damage too. And you can definitely go for more toughness to make the build easier to play, to make the pulls easier. And then later on when you have better stuff, more res and so on, you can transition to more ferocity for clear speed. Otherwise, the gameplay is still fairly similar. So, you dash around, try to make pulls, try to mark a low HP target, pop it. I noticed that I can kill bosses much easier when I'm tanky. And I've also learned how to kill bosses, like certain bosses with certain ads and so on more easily. or when to time my explosions so that, you know, for example, the Justica boss doesn't shield and so on. So that's like something that really helps when you like have a little bit of practice. But in general, you know, you just try to dash around, make a pull, blow it up as fast as possible. You can, for the most part, ignore elites, but you know, sometimes I kill them when there's like some stuff around. You want to kill the untaints as fast as possible, obviously, because they give tons of progress. And for the boss, I try to avoid killing the enemies that are too close to the boss room, because you want to use those to actually kill the boss. So you know, try to make enough progress before you reach the boss, so that you still have something left to kill the boss. Yeah, because you know, region bosses are unkillable, and you have to blow them up with macro impurity. And for the most part, even if they don't have regen, you don't want to stand up for 10 minutes trying to DPS down a 100, 200 million HP boss. Yeah. Anyway, this is about it for this build. You saw the tree here. I will make another link for this tree on the Wolcen online guide, and there's like, you know, just to give you like some kind of like goal to strive towards when you play this build. And there's probably still a little bit of optimization you can still do, but it's like the end game setup that I prefer right now. And yeah, I think that's like one of the best setups you can do with this. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time.